Hey, welcome back to JG3 Reviews, where we explore the world of fountain pens, ink, and paper. And today, I have a fountain pen for you, but it's not just the pen. While this is a great pen, it is the Gravitas Entry in a gorgeous teal blue. There's more here than meets the eye, because underneath this little cap is a nib that you might be interested in. This is the Gravitas Fine Flex nib. And whenever we hear the word flex, we either do one of two things. We go, ooh, or we say, what's with these people and their flex? Come on now. Really, we're going to do another one of those? Yes, we are, because there are people who go, ooh. And then my question is this an ooh? Or is this a what exactly do we have here? So we're going to look at the design of this pen. We're going to look at the performance of this pen, and especially we're going to look at that nib. Does it flex, or is that all just a bunch of flex? Let's spin that camera and find out. All right, we have here that familiar Gravitas pen sleeve with what may be for some of you a familiar pen. This is the Gravitas Entry, and it's their entry-level pen, and I don't really think that name quite portrays how good this pen is. Okay, entry level, you might think, oh, that's down market. No, it's not. It is very well done, and there's a lot to like about this pen. It's not perfect, no pen is, but it is a great pen, and I've had my eye on it for a while. It is a nice light pen, especially in this material, and it's just a good everyday carry pen. And so that was the appeal to me, along with this really fantastic looking teal finish. But that finish was a question I had for Ben. I'm not familiar with a lot of these metal finishes in terms of their chemistry and durability and things like that, and I told him that. However, one of my other interests, lifelong interests, is that I like to hunt and target shoot, and so I am familiar with some of the finishes that are available on various firearms. And so I asked him, I said, I don't know about these finishes, but I'm familiar with what they use for, say, Smith & Wesson or Glock. And he said, yeah, this is the same finish basically as what's on a Glock. Well, that to me speaks, because that has to stand up to the rigors of, for example, our local police chief's sidearm, and everyday carry in a sidearm and all of that in a holster, which hopefully is the worst that thing sees. It has to be able to stand up to a lot of wear and tear. And that's the kind of finish that this is. Now, that doesn't mean that they are impossible to scratch or impossible to wear off, but they are incredibly durable finishes, so that increases my confidence. So I'm interested to see how this pen holds up over time. And I do have pretty high expectations, and if I need to, I'll zoom back into the channel and share with you anything that comes up. But I think this is going to be a great finish. Now, this particular pen that I have in front of you is special in another way. As I mentioned in the intro, it's not just about the pen in this review, it's also about this nib. So as you can see, the design is minimalist. Conical finial at the top of the cap, and that same design at the bottom of the barrel. And then, really nice, always the machining from everything I've ever gotten from them or seen from them is excellent. So really nicely done threading. This textured grip, I find their grip to be just kind of a Goldilocks grip, because it is textured and has a good finish. It is not slippery at all. It doesn't have those weaknesses that a metal grip section can have. I find these great for long writing, quick writing, just really good. And I should say that brass pocket pen that I reviewed is everyday carry for me and has been since I did the review. Even when I carry another pen or pens, that one is often in my front pocket anyway, and just an incredibly durable pen and fantastic, and I like it. So the grip I find to be really good. And let me just say, the grip units are interchangeable between some of the other Gravitas models. So it will also go in that pocket pen, no problem whatsoever. The only difference being the pocket pen cannot accommodate a converter, but it does accommodate the grip section and an international short cartridge. All of these are international sized pens, and they do include a Schmidt converter, and so that's always nice. Now let's look at that nib. So the nib does not have engraving or anything like that on it. It is a smooth-faced flex nib, and that slit goes right up close to the grip itself to give you flexibility. It is a fairly stiff flex nib, and you should know that going in. I'll show you that in the writing sample here in just a little bit. This is not as soft as, say, a Pilot FA nib that I have in my Pilot Custom Heritage 912, or the Falcon nib, or I have a Fountain Pen Revolution Jaipur version 2 that has a flex nib in it. It's not as soft as those, but it is an interesting nib and worth checking out if that's something that you like to write with. It does have a plastic feed, and it is a number 6 sized nib. Now the pen does post, and it does so deeply, which means that the edge of that cap does not rub against my hand, at least with my grip. Of course, your mileage will vary, but it makes for a very well-balanced, comfortable pen to write with, and I do like that. Now, every now and then, you might, if you don't post it with a little bit of a push, it might slip up on you a little, but that's it. Very comfortable pen ergonomically. Let's do a quick count of turns. That is 1, 2, just a little over 2. That was about 2 1/4. We'll call that 2 1/4. All right, let's do a quick size comparison. This is the Gravitas Entry that we're looking at today. The Century in polycarbonate, just to give you an idea of how it compares to their larger pen, the Hongdian Black Forest, the original, and the Lamy All-Star, and a Jinhao 51A. Here are the pens uncapped and unposted. And here you have the pens posted, and you really see the difference it makes when a pen posts deeply. You notice that its unposted and posted lengths aren't that different. And so if you don't like a pen that's too long, this pen has an advantage for you. All right, this is the Gravitas Entry, and first, I'm just going to write normally, just to show you how it writes, because it is actually a very nice, just a fine nib if you're not trying to get any flex out of it. So it can do both. I think that's good to know. Ink, just with normal pressure, a little bit dry, but it's not dry overall, as you'll see. The ink is Noodler's turquoise. Which I think suits this pen quite well with its finish. And as you can see, I'm going to write with just normal light pressure. Not being careful either. That wasn't very good, was it? That's what you will get. So you get, it's called a fine flex. By the way, the paper here today is Ayush. The grid pattern. This is their handy little notebook. And let me just show you the line variation. You get first this is normal light pressure, and then just kind of a moderate pressure, and then if I really want to get some width out of it, I can give it more, and this is probably the most I would do. And you notice at no point did it railroad. Now you can railroad with the pen. It's not, no pen or flex nib will ever let you get away without reaching a railroading point, right? Like they all do it, even the best. However, it does seem to keep up pretty well, especially for a plastic feed. I'm not having a lot of trouble with that. Ink will also make a difference in that, how good the ink flow is. Let's do, again, this is just normal, light pressure, not even trying. Moderate. And then if I really want to try and get some flex out of it on the downstroke, you can. So it doesn't go that wide, as you can see there, but you can get some variation out of this. And again, it just seems, I'm going to be sloppy, and fast, it seems to keep up quite well. And so I find it to be a handy little nib. And to be honest, I like writing with it just normally. And then it has some variation when you want it. And so that's what I like about this pen. So it's not an ultra flex nib or anything like that, but it gives you the possibility of a little bit of extra line variation when you might want it, and it actually is a great everyday fine nib. So I've written with this pen an awful lot, and I'm not a calligrapher. I don't pretend to be, but I do like a little line variation here and there, and I like it. Depending on your writing style, you'll find that there's a little bit of just natural line variation. For example, if you look at the Q here, that has a really nice line variation to it, as does the E at the end. So that's not even trying, that's just using normal pressure. It's a fairly stiff flex nib, so you're going to have to try to coax things like this out of it, but you certainly can just, do a better job than this little line right here is pretty, but all the rest is, junk. But hey, the point is, in your talented hands, this pen will give you the variation you seek if you just kind of learn the nib, and also, how that goes. You break it in a little bit. But I find it to be just a great everyday carry pen that is not overflexing, can do all the normal daily tasks without having to put up with too many quirks, and has the flex when you want it. So I give this pen its craftsmanship, the finish on it, the color that is on this finish, and this nib, I'm going to give it 2 thumbs up. I really do enjoy using this pen. I didn't do cons. Should I do cons? I'm having to deal with its biggest, right? There's no roll stop and no clip, and for some of you that will be a big deal, but I'm used to it. I use all kinds of pens that don't have roll stops and clips, and so it's not the biggest deal in the world. That is going to come down to personal preference, but do know that is one characteristic of the pen. If that drives you nuts, but you want a Gravitas pen to try out this nib, then I would just suggest get the pocket pen. It has one side flat and does not roll off the desk, and that's another reason it's one of my favorite everyday carries. All right, God bless you. Have a great week.